Hartford, Connecticut, July 11th, 1988. A company that had survived the Great Depression, 2 World Wars, the death of the American shoe repair industry, the video game crash of 1983, and a computer so catastrophically broken it erased your data the moment you turned it on, filed for bankruptcy protection. Assets, $535 million. Liabilities, $540 million. The margin between existence and oblivion was $5 million. The company was Coleco Industries. And the strangest part of this story isn't how they died. It's what they were before anyone knew their name, and how many times they should have died long before 1988. This is part 1. February 29th, 1932, the middle of the Great Depression. A Russian Jewish immigrant named Maurice Greenberg opened a business in Hartford, Connecticut, called the Connecticut Leather Company. He sold raw leather and shoe findings, the specialized hardware and supplies that shoe repair shops need to keep people's worn-out footwear alive for another season. It was not a glamorous business. It was a survival business, built for a moment in American history when nobody threw anything away. The name Coleco is right there in the founding, Connecticut Leather Company, a portmanteau that would eventually end up on some of the most coveted Christmas presents in American history. Maurice's son Leonard joined the business and pushed it into rubber footwear distribution. Then wartime demanded during World War II grew the operation. Then post-war prosperity shifted into a heavy shoe machinery, hat cleaning equipment, and marble shoe shine stands. But then in 1954, something changed. Maurice's other son, Arnold, a trained lawyer who wouldn't join the company for another 12 years, was watching from the outside as Leonard made a decision that would define the next 3 decades. Coleco submitted a home leathercraft moccasin kit to the New York Toy Fair. It was selected as a child guidance prestige toy. That was the signal. 2 years later, Coleco adopted vacuum-molded plastic technology and started making plastic wading pools and outdoor toys. In 1961, they sold off the original leather goods division entirely. And then on June 9th, 1962, Coleco Industries Incorporated went public, 120,000 shares at $5 each. By the late 1960s, through the acquisition of Kestrel Corporation, Coleco had become the largest manufacturer of above-ground swimming pools in the world. A leather company, now the king of backyard pools. This is what Coleco did. It survived by reinventing itself faster than the market could kill it. But in 1976, Arnold Greenberg made a bet that put the entire company on the line. It nearly destroyed them in 2 years, and the only thing that saved them was a handheld football game. Arnold Greenberg joined Coleco in 1966, when Leonard finally convinced him to leave law practice. Where Leonard was the engineer and manufacturer, Arnold was the aggressive, fast-talking risk-taker. He became CEO in 1975. And immediately, he looked at what Atari was doing with home video games and decided Coleco needed to be in that room. In 1976, Coleco released the Telstar, a dedicated Pong clone console built on General Instrument's AY3 8500 chip. Coleco was the first company to order the chip, which meant they had stock when every competitor was facing shortages. Smart move. The Telstar spawned 14 variations. Telstar Combat, Telstar Alpha, 14 versions of the same basic idea, chasing a market that was already starting to move on. By 1978, the Telstar line was dying. Coleco posted a $22.3 million loss. For a company that had just gone public 16 years earlier on a leather shoe pivot, this was existential territory. What saved them wasn't a console, it was a handheld. The electronic quarterback launched in 1978 for $25, a portable LED sports game. Simple, cheap, pocketable. It generated over $200 million in sales by 1979. Then came Quiz Whiz in 1979, a portable trivia game with cartridge-based quiz books. Then the tabletop mini arcades came in 1981. Miniature licensed arcade cabinets with vacuum fluorescent displays. Pac-Man, Galaxian, Donkey Kong. Over 3 million units sold combined. Coleco had done it again. Near-death experience, pivot, survival. But Arnold Greenberg wasn't interested in surviving. He wanted to win. In the summer of 1982, Coleco released a console that made the Atari 2600 look like a relic. And the way they did it, one engineer, one trip to Japan, $250,000 handshake, is one of the most audacious moves in gaming history. August 1982, the ColecoVision launched at $175. To understand why it mattered, you have to understand what it was competing against. The Atari 2600 ran on an MOS 6507 processor at 1.19 megahertz. The ColecoVision ran a Zilog Z880A at 3.58 megahertz. The 2600 had no dedicated frame buffer. It had to chase the television beam line by line, which is why Atari games looked the way they did. The ColecoVision had a Texas Instruments graphic chip capable of 256 by 192 resolution, 16 simultaneous colors, and 32 hardware sprites. It was, technically, in an entirely different class. The chief engineer behind it was Eric Bromley, and Bromley did something that secured the ColecoVision's launch before it ever hit a store shelf. He flew to Japan, walked into Nintendo's offices, and came back with the exclusive home console rights to Donkey Kong for $250,000. Donkey Kong was the biggest arcade game in the entire world. Coleco bundled it as the packing game with every ColecoVision sold. Every consumer who bought the system on day one got the closest thing to the arcade experience that had ever existed in a living room. By Christmas of 1982, 4 months after launch, Coleco had sold 550,000 units. By early 1983, they crossed the 1 million line. Then they went after Atari directly. Coleco released Expansion Module Number 1, a $60 add-on that allowed the ColecoVision to play Atari 2600 cartridges. Every game Atari had ever made now ran on Coleco hardware. In December 1982, Atari filed a $350 million patent infringement lawsuit, claiming Coleco had illegally cloned their proprietary chip technology. Coleco won, not because a court ruled in their favor. The case settled before a final ruling, but because Bromley's engineers had reverse engineered the Atari functionality using entirely standard off-the-shelf components, never copying Atari's proprietary silicon directly. Coleco agreed to pay a per-unit royalty and became an official Atari licensee, and then used that settlement to release the Coleco Gemini, a standalone Atari 2600 clone sold legally at $120. A note on the lawsuit worth acknowledging: many retro gaming retrospectives claim Coleco stole Atari's chip design outright. The legal reality is more nuanced. Because the case settled out of court, no court ever issued a final ruling on whether Coleco's approach constituted actual patent theft. Frame it as a legal gray area, not a clear-cut verdict either way. By October 1982, Coleco was posting nearly $100 million in profits on nearly $500 million in sales. And then, in October 1983, two products launched in the same month that would define everything that came next. One would generate $60 million in sales before Christmas. The other would detonate like a bomb inside the company's balance sheet. Both of these stories are in part 2. You now know how a leather company became one of the most powerful forces in the American video game market. You know about the Donkey Kong coup, the Atari lawsuit, and the expansion module that nearly ended Coleco before the ColecoVision even found its footing. What you don't know yet is what Aaron Greenberg showed the press behind tinted glass at the summer CES in June 1983, and why those companies were physically incapable of doing anything that he claimed that they could do. That's part 2.